Great to be talking to you this morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. How about yourself?
Fine, thank you. Now,
Good.
I got to get to one thing right away because we saw you were obviously blindsided at Tribal Council, and you had that death stare right at Joe. What was that all about? What was going through your mind? Obviously, you're feeling a bunch of emotions then, but
Yeah.
why Joe? I mean, why Joe in particular?
Well, because Joe was the guy that went back on his word. He did. Like he promised me that he would stick to his word. He promised me that he would, even when the other two were pushing back against Camilla, and I predicted that he would stand his ground. And he didn't. And so I felt betrayed. And so when I obviously felt betrayed before I got voted out, and then when I did, I knew it was Joe because Joe is the one that pretty much everybody's going to listen to. He's sort of like the Godfather. And when I called him out on that, it was like, hey man, like you're clearly don't see me as an equal. You think you're the leader of this group, and that's number one a problem. So when I got voted out, I looked him in the eye like I thought you were different, man. Like I truly thought you were different, but it just turns out you're just like everyone else playing Survivor.
Now, when you had that conversation with him and you said, look, you pointed it out, you said, look, you went back on your word, you weren't true to that. His
Yeah.
back got up and he got really upset about that. Was that surprising to you that you got that kind of reaction just by mentioning, hey, you kind of went back on your word?
To me, it was half strategy because if he gets offended by that, it's insecurity speaking. And
Right.
insecurities tells me a lot in that game, right? That's information that I like to have. And
Yeah.
so it was sort of like me being man to man. Hey man, like, respectfully, you fucked up, right? Like you sorry, but you got it wrong. And in addition to that, like if you think that you are incapable of going back on your word and then hours later of voting me out after you just sworn your kids you wouldn't,
Yeah.
man, then what do you want from me? Like, of course I'm going to react a certain way. Like again, to affect a weak man, all you have to do is tell him the truth.
Right. And the other thing too is you brought, over and over again, you brought this to their attention. You go, Camilla and Kyle, they pose a threat. You're trying to bring this to his attention. Why do you think they never picked up on this? Because you did have a pretty good, despite everything, you had a pretty good read of what was going on in the dynamics.
I had a great read on everything. In addition to that, you look at what happens on the new Vula after the swap, and it's like, how do you not assume that Camilla and Kyle are working together after I even come to you after Vula? Not only that, but then you have two people, Mary and myself, saying, "Hey, something's going on." There's only one way to describe that: horrible gameplay. That's why they didn't get it right.
Now, when I spoke to Chrissy last week, she was talking about, like you just said, she's like, Joe's and Eva's control of the game isn't being shown to its fullest, and he's
Yeah.
pretty much the godfather out there. What is your take on what's going on? Again, you get to see everything that we didn't get to see.
Joe, everybody in my cast is an incredible person. Joe is
Right,
an incredible man. Like he's an incredible father. A lot of respect for the man, truly, especially outside of the game.
right.
In the game, however, he was very much like an aggressive player, sort of a bully. And it's again that's Survivor, right? Like
Yeah,
if he's doing that intentionally, great. But it seems to me as if he wasn't self-aware of his place in
right.
the game. But unfortunately, you're in a position where people were almost scared of him in a way. But I don't even think he realizes that he was doing it, and so he can't even really take credit for that. And I think that's what Chrissy was talking about. Is it was his way or the highway, which is the ironic part of him voting me out, thinking that I was trying to push so hard against Camilla.
Yeah. Now, again, you said like he's playing an aggressive game, he's bringing a bully. What are some of the things that are going on that gives off that perception? Because again, we're only seeing bits and pieces. I mean, I see him being
Yeah.
stern, I see him being that way, and everybody keeps going to him for advice. What are some of the things that you saw that would give you that perception?
It's I don't want to take away from the integrity of the game, so it's hard to answer that question,
Right.
right? Like, I think I'll just have to fall back on what I said, truly, not to withhold information from you, but
Yeah.
there are things that, like, again, Joe is an incredible person, incredible man.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take that away from him at all. And I don't want to sit here and drag the guy because I truly do think, and I have a lot of respect for him. The best I can say is, yeah, there is a lot that isn't being shown. And in reality, like people are saying, I was being aggressive towards Kyle,
Right.
but I was not nearly the most aggressive person on that beach.
Now we saw last night, well, actually the last couple episodes, are people are saying, David's changed. He's not the same guy. He's acting different. He's paranoid. Did you get the feeling that people were thinking that about you? And give us a look at, did you feel you were acting that way at all? Or do you think you were just, hey, I'm being the same guy. I'm just
Yeah.
alerting you guys to what's really going on here?
Yeah, I felt I had a pretty good read on the game. I really did. I felt I knew what people's thoughts were and how they perceived me. So when I was voted out, I wasn't really surprised at all. Like I knew I was on the chopping block and I could see people slipping away from how they felt with me. Like I had a really good relationship with pretty much everybody out there. I did.
Right.
And so when people are behaving differently towards me, then obviously that's a telling sign. I don't think, again, like even talking to Joe at the hammock there, it's like I'm being as monotone and I'm not yelling. Like I'm being as like passive as like I can while
Right.
confronting the Godfather. Is like, hey man, like you went back on your word. You told me this was gonna happen. And he's like, I didn't do that. Like, of course not. It's like, dude, like how else can I play the game, right? It's like me being different. It's like I know what's going on and I have to push a little bit because to me it's like I know that the strong five's at risk.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not just going to lay over and play dead. Like I'm going to do something about it. And my demeanor being different, like it's probably just Kyle and Shaheen saying those things, and that was gameplay, right? Telling
Yeah.
Joe and telling Eva, David's being different, like something's going on. He's being paranoid. It's like I'm not being paranoid whatsoever. I'm 100% right on my reads. That's not paranoia. All right, it's they're paranoid about me being paranoid, basically, which is
It's not paranoid if they're really coming after you.
that's the thing. It's like you look up the definition of paranoia and it's unjustified. Everything that I was feeling and doing was 100% justified. So by definition, I'm not paranoid whatsoever. They are the ones being paranoid, and they got it wrong, right? Like I was correct in all my reads. I had my finger on the pulse of the game, and unfortunately, it just matters sometimes. And you can argue that maybe I pushed too much, maybe I didn't push enough. Like my social game maybe struggled in the last episode or two.
Right.
But again, like the problem is you're with Kyle and Shaheen did a good job manipulating Joe and Eva. And so to me, it's like beating my head against a wall, trying to convince them, like, come on, guys, like everything's there. All the writing's on the wall. How can you be so obtuse?
I was going to say that we have Joe and Eva as from the edit, from what we see, it's like they're the biggest targets, and nobody seems to be aligning against them. Nobody's coming after them. Why do you think that is? Because obviously it's very easy to flip the numbers and take them out. Why is that not happening based on what you saw out there?
Because I didn't want it to happen. So, and but seriously though, it was, we created this alliance of strong five, and Kyle and I had been running the SIVA 4,
Right.
and we were keeping the two separate for as long as we could before they started targeting one another. And then when they did want to target one another, that's when the conversation you saw in episode 8, where I'm like, I told Kyle it has to be tonight. What I'm referring to is we have to choose which alliance we're going to go to the end with. And I obviously from day one was like, I want it to be the strong five. If
Right.
Kyle had sat there and said, hey man, I really think we should do the SIVA 4, I would have done it. But I thought that the strong five was better for us. And so to me, that was the way moving forward. And again, like, the people, I don't truly know. Because to me, like, I'm thinking, what are the best moves for Mitch? What are the best moves for Shaheen? What are the best moves for Star? What are the best moves for Camilla? And when you do that, you can clearly see what's happening in the game. And I don't know why people don't do that. I don't know why Gia, Joe, and Eva weren't doing that, because you're right. They should have been making moves, and you have to assume they're going to make a move. And the fact that they're not making moves doesn't mean that you shouldn't play as if they're not, because you
Right.
have to assume they would be.
Now, again, you had a pretty good read on everything, the relationships that were going on. You've been now able to watch things back and see everything that you weren't a part of, conversations that weren't a part. Even though you had a good read, what has surprised you the most about what you've seen?
Nothing. I mean, honestly, though, I think, yeah, I knew the conversations that were happening. I knew Shaheen, his plays. I knew Camilla's plays. I knew Kyle's plays. I knew when I started to lose Joe and Eva, like nothing really surprised me, honestly. Like I know it might sound a little egotistical to say, but that's the honest truth. Like I knew everybody's position. I knew what they were doing. Nothing really surprised me, man. Watching the edit, it's like, yeah, duh. Like,
Now, ask this of all the Survivor players, because again, we only get to see a small portion of anybody's journey. Is there anything about your journey where there was a moment with somebody, a strategic moment, a personal moment? Is there anything
yeah.
that about your journey that you wish fans would have been able to see on the show?
Star and I had a really good relationship too. I love Star,
Yeah.
and I had a good relationship. I think with pretty much everybody. I really did. Like I connected with people on a level of which I did not expect, but I was just being myself out there, and I think that really is what made people sort of gravitate towards me because you're playing a game in which most people aren't. They aren't being sincere. They aren't being themselves, and the ones that aren't, sort of out themselves, like Charity, for example. But there was one moment in the reward with Eva and Joe and Mary where I told them exactly what was going to happen, and this is why I became a little frustrated. As I said, look. We're going to switch the vote to Camilla. I guarantee you something's going on here. They're going to not like it. They're going to visibly not like it when you first tell them, but they're
Right.
going to be like, fine, right? They're going to go along with it because they don't want to push too hard.
Right.
And then we're going to make the vote Camilla. And then at the very end, before tribal council, Shaheen or Kyle or both is going to come to you and say, hey, this is bullshit. Why is it Camilla? It should be Chrissy. And you need to stand your ground. And you need to
Right.
promise me that you will. And he did. He did. Joe and Eva are like, yes, I understand. If that moment happens, I will not flip the vote back to Chrissy. And so what happens? My prediction 100% came true. They fell right into my trap. I gave Camilla and Shaheen and Joe on a silver platter to Eva and Joe. They didn't take it. And so to me, I felt absolutely betrayed. Of course, I'm going to be frustrated.
Right. Now, obviously, you can't say who you voted for, but you are a jury member. You get a voice in deciding who wins this season. When you were deciding on a winner, what were some of the things you were thinking, or some of the aspects of the game that you were thinking or looking for in a winner?
I'm a gamer. Like I've been a PvP gamer, man. Dungeons and Dragons, you wear the Dungeons and Dragons shirts. Like I like Dungeons and Dragons. I've, done my fair share of campaigns, even though I might not look like it. Like I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. And I appreciate the game. And
Yeah.
so to me, I did the best I could to take a step back and remove any sort of bias, any sort of resentment, and ask myself who played the best game. Because as a PvP or as a gamer, like that to me matters a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like I did truly want to vote for the person I think played the best game.